Hi, my name is John Hostetter. Thank you for joining me today as we take a deeper look at what are restorative practices. So, to begin, what are restorative practices? Well, it's an approach to discipline within the classroom. Restorative practices can be summed up as an approach that focuses on how you interact with your students, how your students interact with you, how students interact with each other, and how all of you interact with the environment in which you're all in together. Next Gen Learning defines it as something that can offer schools an alternative to traditional disciplinary actions that center on punishment for misbehavior and breaking rules. So you might be asking yourself, why should you choose this approach? Well, restorative practices is an approach that really focuses on building and creating a community, and it tries to do that through creating mutual respect within the classroom. How do you want to be respected by your students? What is appropriate? But also, how do your students want to be respected by you? What do they find appropriate within the classroom? Also, how should students respect one another? How do they like to be respected by their classmates? And lastly, how should everyone respect the environment that you're all working in? It also focuses heavily on conflict resolution. As a teacher, you will be helping students to develop conflict resolution skills so that they can use communication and their words to work through problems and feelings rather than resorting to physical actions. It also focuses heavily on accountability. When students make choices that are intentional, those choices affect others within the classroom, whether that be their classmates, you as their teacher, or even their parents at home. How do their choices at school affect those around them? One of the other key points of restorative practices is that it is a proactive approach rather than a reactive. How can you develop a sense of community so that students feel their importance and self worth within the classroom rather than only responding to negative actions? And with that, students should really feel their value within the classroom, as I mentioned, and understand that, again, their actions do affect others. Those are some of the key points that come up frequently within the restorative practices approach. So, what exactly does this look like in the classroom? Well, there are two key ways. We're going to take a look at the first key way now. And as I mentioned on the previous slide, this is through a proactive community building strategy. By doing this in a proactive approach, you can actually help students to tackle and overcome issues and problems before they happen within the classroom. And it is also a way as a teacher to help curb common misbehaviors that you might see within the classroom. And you can do this through developing connections, getting students familiar with one another, things that they like, dislike, and how is everyone as a person within the classroom. Getting them to know each other on a personal level is a great way to begin building a community within your classroom. You can also foster communication skills. How can students share their feelings with one another? Positive feelings, negative feelings, and how do you communicate your feelings with your students as a teacher? When they do something that is inappropriate, how do you acknowledge that within the classroom? You're also going to be guiding them on conflict resolution strategies. These are things that you do proactively so that when a conflict arises among students, they know how to deal with this on their own or attempt to deal with this on their own, using their words, talking through feelings and how someone's actions has affected them, rather than resorting to putting their hands on another student or making a bad choice in how they respond to the behavior that they do not find acceptable. And again, with that proactive approach, you really want to try to build up student self worth and importance within the classroom. One of the key points of building a proactive community is that students should understand that everyone belongs Even though everyone might be different in their own ways, everyone still has a place, is still valuable and important within the classroom. And those are some of the key points with building this proactive community. So, what is different in the restorative practices approach that sets it apart from other disciplinary or behavior strategies within the classroom? One of the first main points is that the aim of restorative practices is to keep students at school. With a heavy emphasis on proactive strategies and building that community, you want to avoid suspending students and having them removed from school. Removing and pushing students away from the classroom is not a way to build a strong sense of self worth and importance within the classroom. So, we want to try to keep students at school, and unless it is absolutely necessary, because they are causing physical harm or making threats to another student, we really want to avoid suspension for things that can be dealt with inside the school rather than suspending them and pushing them further away from the classroom community. The whole goal of restorative practice is to try to be proactive, as we mentioned on the previous slide. We want to attack the cause of the problem, not respond to the results that happen because of the problem. Again, focusing on that proactive approach, not the reactive. Overall, this means avoiding punitive measures. Zero tolerance policy. Again, we want to equip students with the skills and abilities to deal with problems on their own, making them aware of what is and isn't acceptable within the classroom and within the school as a whole. Trying to keep students within school and give them chances to work through problems on their own. Our other main approach to restorative practices is restorative processes. Unfortunately, as much as we would like to be proactive in attacking problems and giving students strategies and processes to help avoid conflict, unfortunately, we can't always have a 100% success rate with that. So we can focus on restorative processes for when those incidents do occur. And we want to be prompt in how we respond to these incidents. Rather than immediate punishment of a student, we want to talk through the incident, what happened, who was involved, and we want to make sure that all parties involved understand how actions cause harm to those around them. They need to be held accountable for their actions. How did what they do or say affect another classmate in the classroom? How did what they do or say affect the teacher in the classroom? And this also includes how what that student said or did in the classroom can actually affect their parents and caretakers outside of school. How do people respond to that misbehavior or hurtful word or whatever the incident that happened was? The point being that their actions do affect others around them. We want to further build community, showing that when a student says or does something that's hurtful, it does impact the community of people that they're involved in. And by talking through the incident rather than just an immediate punishment, this is showing that hopefully the community can restore and rebuild itself based on what behavior has occurred. Even though a poor choice was made, it can be worked through and moved past so that we can further build upon that community and connectivity with each other. And one of the main ways we can do this is through a peer-led practice. And this connects back to the proactivity within this approach. Giving students the skills and processes to work through these problems and discussions on their own. By having this as a peer-led practice, students can see the importance of why they need to appreciate and treat those other students around them fairly in an appropriate way, as you would have already discussed as a classroom. And you can also be proactive with this as well by doing things like a community circle and talking through feelings and sharing things together. And you're actually going to be taking a look at that in the next video. So I Thank you for going through restorative practices with me, and I hope that you found this information valuable.